Milky Way, letters from the lighthouse. The lighthouse at Greystone Point had been silent for over 20 years. Its once radiant beam was now a dim relic, dulled by sea salt and time. Locals believed it was haunted, some said cursed, and others just forgot it was ever there. But for Maya, it had always been a place of strange comfort, a towering monument of unanswered questions, and memories that flickered like candle flames during a storm. Maya had returned to the coastal town after more than a decade away, her suitcase filled with clothes and her heart heavy with loss. Her father had passed away, leaving her the old family cottage she hadn't stepped foot in since she was 16. The town looked smaller than she remembered. The beach, once endless, now felt like a strip of nostalgia framed by cliffs and fog. And there, at the edge of the world, stood the lighthouse. She hadn't planned on visiting it again. Too many ghosts. Too many memories of chasing seagulls with sand-covered feet and watching the beam of light slice through the ocean mist at night like a guardian. But something kept pulling her there. The day after the funeral, she found herself walking toward it with an old key in her coat pocket. Her father had left it on the kitchen table, beside a note that simply said, "Some truths only shine in the dark." The key still worked. The heavy wooden door groaned as it opened. Dust clung to the air like ancient secrets. Inside, the spiral staircase spiraled up like a spine into the ribs of the tower. She climbed, slowly, breath catching with each step. At the top, the light chamber was cold, full of rusted gears and glass that bore the scars of time. And there, tucked behind a broken panel, was a wooden box. Her name was carved into the lid. Maya's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. Some yellowed with age, some newer. All addressed to her. And all signed with the same name, Julian. Her breath hitched. Julian had been her everything once. Her summer moon, her seaside boy with salt in his hair and poetry in his soul. They had been just teenagers when they fell in love under the lighthouse's watchful gaze. But life, cruel and impatient, had pulled them apart. Julian had vanished after that last summer. No phone calls. No letters. Only silence. Except here they were, letters. Pages upon pages of love, regret, and hope. The first one was dated 3 weeks after she had left. It spoke of loneliness, of the way the sea seemed angrier without her laughter to soothe it. The second described how he waited every Sunday by the rocks in case she returned. The third spoke of her favorite book, and how he reread it every year on her birthday. As she read, tears carved rivers down her cheeks. He hadn't left. He had stayed. Writing her, waiting for her. The letters grew more desperate with time. In one, he wrote, "I don't know if these will ever reach you. But the lighthouse is our promise. If you ever come back, maybe you'll find them. Maybe you'll find me." She stayed there until the sun began to set, reading every word. And then, in the bottom of the box, she found the last letter. Unopened. Her name was written in bold strokes, with a date that chilled her, 2 days ago. Her fingers tore the seal. "Maya. I saw you today. You didn't see me, but I knew it was you the moment you stepped onto the pier. You haven't changed. Not really. Maybe a little sadder. Maybe a little wiser. I wasn't sure if I should approach. It's been so long. But I had to write one last time. If you're reading this, it means you found the letters. It means maybe, there's still something left. I'll be at the lighthouse tomorrow night, At 8, just once. If you don't come, I'll understand. But I hope you do. Always. Julian. The clock read 7:42 p.m. Maya didn't hesitate. She ran down the steps, hair flying behind her like wings. The wind slapped her face, but she didn't care. Her heart thundered as she neared the base of the lighthouse. For a moment, she thought she had imagined it all. That the past was a trick, a story she'd made up to survive. And then she saw him. Julian stood by the edge of the rocks, facing the sea, a lantern glowing beside him. When he turned, their eyes met, and the years between them collapsed. His face, older and touched by time, still held that quiet fire that had once lit her world. Maya, he asked, as if her name might break him. You waited, she whispered. I always did. She stepped into his arms, burying her face against his chest. The sea roared behind them, but in that moment, there was only silence, and the soft, undeniable sound of a heart finding its echo. They spent the night in the lighthouse, reading the letters together, filling in the missing years with laughter, tears, and late-night tea. And when the sun rose, its first light gleamed through the tower's cracked glass like a promise. Greystone Point wasn't haunted after all. It was waiting, just like Julian. And so was Maya. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who believes in the kind of love that stands the test of time. Subscribe to Whispers of Love for more timeless tales that stir your soul. Love letter sparkles. Hashtag love after years dizzy. Hashtag whispers of love dove. Hashtag found again love letter. Hashtag second chances red heart. Hashtag letters from the lighthouse water wave. Hashtag emotional love story crescent moon. Hashtag timeless romance mantelpiece clock. Hashtag storytelling magic books.